Yo, what's good, Celtics fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Celtics Chronicle with me, your boy, Adam Taylor. As usual, I'm joined by my homies, compadres, co-hosts in crime, Mr. Mike Webber and Mr. Tim Sheils. What's popping, y'all?
Nothing much. What's going on, guys?
Yeah, everyone. That intro gets harder and harder every time, because if it's not, I have to remember exactly who's on, and then whether it's compadre or compadres, depending on if there's two or three of us. And it doesn't seem like it's difficult, but when you've got the pressure of being live at the same time, because we're live on Facebook right now, then I'm just like, dude, I can't mess up, which usually leads to me messing up.
I mean, as a musician of the group, I'd like to say that intro slaps.
Yeah, I like it. Homie, compadre, co-host in crime, and then whoever
yeah.
I'm with. Yo, so we're talking about the Celtics playing in Summer League, the Summer League Celtics being the topic of the day. Absolute dreadful first half against Toronto in terms of shooting. It was like, 12.5% shooting from the field over the first two quarters. They figured it out in the second and third, forced overtime, and then managed to get the dub. Celtics undefeated since trading Jaylen Brown, just putting that out there. Got to look at silver linings wherever you can, right?
I love it.
Like, with that being said, we got a lot of takeaways to get through. I'm going to pass this over to whichever one of you two fine gentlemen would like to take up and tell me what angle you want to move with, and I'll happily play off of y'all.
All right. So I wanted to say, I think when you're looking at the Summer League, you're always looking to see like the growth year over year for the guys who already had a chance to play on the roster, right? So like the last couple of years, it was like Jordan Walsh. We were looking to see how Baylor would be last year. Didn't shoot well, but showed a lot of other things he could do. Can we just talk about Amari Williams for like 30 minutes, possibly? I don't know. I just thought that was because the league,
countryman, dude.
Yeah, man. Yeah, hell yeah. Like he had a good appearance against the Pistons in the regular season. I can't say I watched a ton of him in Maine, but there was a lot good being said about him. But man, big men get lost in the Summer League typically. Like they just are not part of it. It's a lot of like loosey-goosey pickup ball look and feel a lot of times. He was the best player in the court last night on both teams. He was awesome.
And that's what you hope for, right? Because, out of all the guys you got on the Summer League roster, he's one of them that has some NBA experience. And, you saw the same thing with Hugo, and Hugo played great considering that his shooting was terrible, but I'm sure it has to do with that massive, gigantic welt on his arm, because what the hell is that? I think
looks like he had him in the MMA ring.
Yeah,
He's bigger than me.
Joe got him off camera.
Yeah, you did see Joe. You did see him trying to put Joe in a headlock when they were in Spain. Tried to put him in a little rear naked. I reckon Joe just threw him and armbarred him and didn't let go.
You saw Joe tuck his head to the side. I guess that's the good strategy. Once you get put in a headlock, you would know, Adam.
Just get your chin down, dude. Don't let him get underneath your chin. Put down to the side. You got that bit there, right? Just get your chin under.
That thing's gnarly. That thing is gnarly.
He still filled out that stat sheet too, but I agree. I agree with what you were saying, Mike, where it's just overall the polish that Amari showed. There was a couple of reads where he was a little bit slow in the uptake on defense. There was a couple times where it was just a couple small things, but all in all, 23 points, 7 of 9 shooting, 5 of 8 from the free throw line, 13 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 turnovers, 2 blocks, plus 9 on the night. That was really solid, especially when you've got a lot of questions about what your depth is behind Queta, behind Robinson. You now have another body that you should be getting some minutes for. And it's the same thing with Chris Cenac. Well, I'll kick it over for Adam to talk a little bit about Amari before we get into that. But I also liked what we saw out of the rookie too, of course.
Yeah.
So Amari, joking. One of the things I really like though, when you look at the way Mazzulla leans on non-shooting bigs, and I've spoke about this before, it's very much, we want you to be a hub on the perimeter. So we want you screening. We want you via screen into another screen. And we want you setting things up with passing, whether that be a dribble handoff or whether that be a short roll, kick out, whatever it may be. Come off your screen, make a read if the ball lands in your hands. And I think that Amari fills that better than anybody since Al Horford. And Al Horford was a shooting big, so that role wasn't really necessarily there for him because that type of role went to Luke Cornett, and Cornett developed into a short roll passer during that championship season. That was when we really saw his short roll creation come to fruition. Amari does a lot, dude. They ran him in a bunch of actions. They were asking him to create out of the mid post. He was creating in delay actions. Delays are just a fancy word for the big man's got the ball in a 5-out offense. They had him creating out of those. He was making reads on plays. They'd run zoom actions, a pin down into a curl for a DHO, and he'd just reject the DHO because the the cutter's defender was too close and he'd kick it out to whoever was in the wing. Just the way he operated as a facilitation hub, coupled with the fact that he looked comfortable scoring in that short, like floater mid-range area, that short mid-range. He looked comfortable rebounding the ball on both sides of the floor. He looked huge. There was times as well where you saw him playing drop and he'd rotate over into the paint and defend. So ball handlers would either kick out or they'd just panic and throw some wild shit. I think that he's got a really good opportunity to keep developing. I don't think we're going to see too much of him this season. He's on a two-way. He's going to spend most of the season in Maine, and he's got a bit of an uphill battle. Luka Garza is going to be in front of him in that rotation. Robinson's obviously added another body in front of him. Kate has just been extended, so he's in front of him. I do struggle to see where Amari fits in this year, but Garza's on the last year of his deal, and there's a very good chance that the Celtics will be in a position where it's like, hey, you've performed, not talking to Garza here, you've performed well enough now to go and get a bigger deal elsewhere, and we're just going to slide Amari into your role after this season. And I'd be completely fine with that.
I mean, with the health of Mitch Robinson, too, it's not a bad idea to have somebody that talented and that versatile. I mean, he does have a history of missing games, too, so it's certainly a nice luxury to have down in Maine, for sure, too, for him.
Yeah, and that's a fair thing to worry about as well when they have to get down to managing those minutes. We talked about it a little bit when we first had the initial news on the Mitch Robinson signing, but in terms of the Summer League stuff and what we've seen from the bigs, is at least promising that you've got some guys who have some development there. And Amari's still really young. I want to say he's 23 or 24.
I think he's still 24.
I think they were saying on the broadcast last night he's 24. So the fact that he's still that young, he's got some room, he's got the physical tools. And again, you can't teach height. You can't teach those physical, measurements and everything. So the fact that he's able to do anything at all with that is a good indicator. And I mean, it's just growth. Any of these guys that you bring on for Summer League play, they need these minutes to develop. That's why they're in the G League. And you hope that if they're going into a game at the NBA level, it's either because you're up big or he's starting to show something. And with this kind of rotation, you added another body to the big man rotation. And on top of that, you drafted another rookie who's going to be hopefully getting some minutes there as well. So you do have a little bit of a crunch there, but I also wonder, because of how the minutes will be managed for Mitch Robinson, does it kind of open the door to have a little bit of a bigger rotation? But that being said, what did you guys think about Chris Cenac? Because personally, I thought there was a lot to like there, especially with the, coming in with a double-double. Of course, he had that three-pointer, stretched the floor a lot more than I thought he would, and hitting that three to tie it up to send it over to OT was pretty awesome. But all in all, physically, like very, very gifted athlete, super, super bouncy from what we saw.
Yeah, I caught I think it was D'Amico interviewed Kelvin Sampson. I caught that interview. I'm pretty sure it was who it was. And it was pretty insightful because he talked about how much talent Houston had on their team last year and how Chris had to defer a lot. And the thing I liked most about him was he said that, like, the game just seems to come naturally to him. One of the things I was looking for last night was the game. Did the game seem fast for him? Was it sped up? Did he seem to struggle with making decisions? And it just seemed like he didn't seem nervous with the ball. He made good choices. I'm not even sure. I'm trying to look and double check. He had a few turnovers in the first quarter, but he looked comfortable. He looked fluid. His jump shot definitely looked good. And I guess I could see, like, I think Emil Jefferson or Joe said to him, you dropped to 27. You were disappointed about that. Well, let's use the Summer League to focus on why you dropped to 27. Let's figure that out. And I think he definitely sent a good message. A great opening game. I know Emil Jefferson afterwards was saying he called him a great player. I know that's a little hyperbolic. I'm sure they were excited about him winning. But I certainly think that's a lot of promise for a guy drafted 27th, who's 19, who wasn't featured on a national championship contending team. I thought he was really good.
I did say, you might have saw my lips move a moment ago when you was talking. You said I had a couple of turnovers in the first quarter. My response to that, I was on mute. Didn't everybody?
Yeah, that first quarter was rough.
Didn't everyone? I'm not judging him. And look, this is where I am with Summer League as a whole. I tend to take it for what it is, right? It's just a bunch of dudes that are trying to either earn minutes or earn roster spots. And that means that some are going to play well in roles that they're not going to have at the next level. It very rarely translates. So I do tend to take this as a look at the skill set rather than look at the production type of week. And I'm fine with that. And I'm fine with everybody else looking at it however they choose to look at it. With me, the thing that really stood out with Cenac was He's came into this having dropped to 27 in the draft. He's came in knowing he's going to be facing an uphill battle for minutes. And not once did I feel like he was pressing. He allowed the game to come to him. It was very Tatum-esque in a way where he kind of was quiet to begin with, started feeling it out, then started to rise in like composure and impact as the game went on. Super bouncy. I mean, that one, if Dillon Mitchell weren't in the way, that putback would have been a highlight for like the entire
Looked like vintage Blake Griffin on that.
dude. Like the wingspan, the explosion, the 3-point shot was there. I feel like there's still going to be some positioning stuff that he needs to work on. Sometimes I felt like he was probably his body was at the wrong angle, or maybe he was 2-3 feet away from where you'd want him to be. But overall, this was a solid first game for him. You've got to understand as well, for anyone listening, the jump up from college to summer league is tough because you are coming up against guys like Amari and Hugo that have had a year of NBA experience, or a guy like Hugo that's had a year of NBA, 2 years of playing in FIBA over in like the Euro League and the Spanish League, and he's just come off an international tournament. He is seasoned for his age in terms of professional experience. And you've got guys on other teams that are going to be going into their third year, second year. There's such a big level, like jump of development in the summer league because you've got first, second, and third year dudes. Then you've got veterans that are just trying to make it. So I think that for the position he found himself in and the urge he probably had to be like, this is my moment, let me go and do this right now. And then to come out and play such a professional type of game in his first game while hitting a clutch shot to tie it up as well. This was a great first showing for him. Really good in terms of the overall approach. And I think that's the sort of thing that will probably stand out more to the coaching and scouting staff than just the box score itself. Or at least it would to me.
Yeah, and his rebounding was as advertised too, which is nice because that's a big focus for Joe. I mean, 10 rebounds, and it wasn't even like he tried. He just seems to have good position, good instinct for it, and that's the thing that Kelvin Sampson said in that interview is like, look, he has so much. His ceiling, like from shooting and shot creation and all that, is super high. So much to go with still, but he's walking into the league an excellent rebounder, which is good to hear because that's definitely nice to have. We talked about a while ago, we were talking about free agents for the year, guys that we were thinking about getting. And one of the ones that we really liked was John Collins. And I know this is early and I don't want to jump on the hyperbolic train either. However, I want to say that Kelvin Sampson said that he thought his comp right now at this moment was Channing Frye. But I think he reminds me a lot of John Collins, like athletically, the explosivity part of it. I don't remember Channing Frye being that explosive. I know he was a good shooter and a good rebounder and a good passing big, but man, I was really impressed just in general with how he moved. He moved like a big wing.
And I think it's the ability to stretch the floor, right? I think that's probably where that Channing Frye comp comes from, just because of the wingspan. Like you take a minute to look at him and you're like, he's a big dude. Like he physically just an imposing frame. But the fact that he was like, I know he only took 4 threes, but he was 2 of 4 from deep. And it wasn't like it looked like janky at all. Sometimes like when you see like the big tall guys get out in the perimeter and they take a 3-pointer, I like to call it like the trebuchet because it just looks like this like massive like awkward like hulking long just a long shooting process,
like a free throw from Golden State.
Yeah, I mean with just like just like this like lanky looking jump shot, and like hey, sometimes they hit it, but it's the fact that it just takes so long. But like his shot goes up quick. There's not really a ton of hitch. Especially for a big man, that's like a good indicator. He obviously had like an overall like rough shooting night, but when they got him rolling to the rim was where we really started to see why they drafted him, just because of the ability of he's got size, he's got really good bounce, explosive at running to the rim. And for the Celtics, like that's something that they talked about this entire offseason. We spent so much time talking about rim pressure. We want dunks. Analytically, we want dunks. No one here would be more happier than if we were taking more dunks. This is a kind of player that you draft if that's what you're trying to do. So, no idea what his minutes are going to be, but this is like you were saying, Adam, looking at the skill set of this guy, I could see why the Celtics were stoked that he fell to 27. And again, it feels like one of those picks that the Celtics got where it's a guy who has all those physical tools and the ability to do those things at a pretty high level. And again, he's so young, so it's still, there's going to be a lot to work with there. And hopefully, it's not something where you hope that this guy's going to be getting a ton of minutes out the gate just because you want to see him develop, but because he's going to earn them. And that's the exciting part about it. This is one of those players that you kind of can easily get behind, I feel like.
Oh, 100% in terms of he just seems like a dude that's going to give you everything he's got on every game. And you could see that in a way. And like that doesn't always mean he's going to be sprinting up and down the floor. Giving you everything you've got while letting the game come to you looks different than just pushing every possession. But it's the same end result. One thing I do want to note, when tall guys are taking shots like that and they look janky, I call them slender shots. Kind of like Slender Man. But like slender shots.
Oh, I get it. Yeah.
Just like, that's kind of what I've always called him. Like, dude, that guy's a slender shooter. It just works for me, right? It's definitely a note thing in my notebook. Going back to Cenac for a moment, I think the other part of it for me is the fact that he played two different positions just in the first game of Summer League. I was shocked he came off the bench with a guy drafted after him starting in Dillon Mitchell, and we can get to Dillon Mitchell in a moment.
Mhm.
But there was times where he played at the 5, and then there was times where he slid down to the 4 next to Amari Williams, and he didn't look out of place or like he was struggling in either of those two positions. One, because at the 5, he can lean into his athleticism a little bit more. And 2, at the 4, he showed us he could score off the dribble. He had that nasty crossover late. I think it was in the 4th, took the big man, crossed him over, got to the rim and finished through traffic. And then he also hit, obviously, 2 threes. So I think that positional versatility between those two spots is another reason why there's an opportunity for him to earn minutes, because he's not just sitting in a depth chart that's already deep. We just spoke about how Amari Williams is facing bodies to get past to earn minutes. If Cenac's only playing the 5 as well, that becomes even more difficult for one of the two of them, whereas Cenac playing at the 4 opens a little bit more up around them. And again, if he shows he can be somewhat consistent from deep, it does make the notion of moving on from Sam Hauser, who's been slid up to the 4 at points. He shouldn't really be there, but there's been times when he's been there. It makes the notion of moving on from him when you've got Baylor, if Cenac's shooting well, blah, 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 a little bit more palatable. So I think that he's got an opportunity to develop this year and next. I'd still expect him to spend some time in Maine, just because their player development program has been so clutch the last few years. Why wouldn't you want him working through that? So I'd expect him going backwards and forwards a bit, but I was really, really impressed.
Especially, like I said, we led off with 2 big men in the Summer League. That is not a conversation I expected us to have when we talked about a recap of the game. I thought it was going to be like, one of the guards we got from the G League that has tons of games under their belt already, hit like 8 threes or something random. I did not expect us to be talking about 2 bigs doing awesome. That's exciting. And obviously, Hugo and his disgusting, giant, yellow jaundice bruise that looks like a country or something on him, even though he didn't shoot well. What I was excited about was seeing him just have the ball in his hands. He played 37 minutes, and I get he's 20 years old, and I get he's in incredible shape, but 37 minutes is a lot right out the rip. And part of me wonders if that's because they typically have a history of taking a guy who's already in the rotation, putting him in Summer League, and then only having to play a game or 2, and then backfilling it with some of the other guys that are auditioning for contracts. But I was really impressed with, there was obviously, everybody, if you aren't doing it now, you have to subscribe to Celtics Chronicle Substack with Adam, because he wrote about the 2-man game with Amari and Hugo as well. And he made a lot of really good pick and roll passes. There was some highlights from FIBA where he had some no looks and some wraparounds. He had a really nice wraparound last night when he came in. He looked like I would say Rondo, but he did like a Rondo-esque play last night. It was an awesome play. And that's another, there it is. And that's not something we saw last year. Like, Hugo was a good passer, but driving through the lane, dribbling up full court, cutting through the lane, faking a pass this way, and then wrap around a big for a pass was not on my bingo card for him last night. So I think he deserves credit for that. He definitely showed leadership in that regard.
Do you know what I've learned? Basketball, people that talk about basketball never win at bingo, because we have a lot of things that aren't on our bingo cards. Look, I feel like we should stop playing bingo.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm in a joking mood.
I'm old, but I'm not ready for the bingo.
Dude, I'll go to bingo today, man, especially if it's a free bar.
There you go.
Just so I think he played, I really liked what Hugo had to offer. You kind of hit on a lot of it there. The one thing I will add to it is he just didn't seem deterred by the fact he shot like shit. It didn't seem to knock his confidence at all. And that isn't an area of the game you can teach. You're either just immovably confident or you're not, right? Some guys will get in their own head. They'll stop shooting. Other guys will start forcing it more, pushing it more, making mistakes that way. Hugo was just like, I'm just going to play my game. If it goes in, it goes in. If it doesn't, then, I'm going to set guys up. I'm going to rebound. I'm going to defend. But if it's open, if the shot comes to me, I'm taking it anyway. And I thought that was a really good sign of on-court maturity for him and for the Celtics in general, because especially for a team like Boston, where they're just going to shoot such a high volume of threes by default, having a guy that's like, I don't really give a shit if it goes in. I care, obviously, but if it does, it's not going to affect how I approach the game. The more of those dudes you can get, the better. So that was a really impressive, I don't know what you call it. It's not a skill.
Wrinkle.
Observation, wrinkle. There we go. Just like when I'm getting older, if I smile, I get wrinkles. It was one of them, but these aren't impressive. His was. There we go.
I will say, too, beyond the fact of just he kept at it, he still put up 17 points, but he also was attacking the basket. And I think it's telling that, like, the two most experienced guys on this summer league for the Celtics led the team in free throws. That was Amari and Hugo. And they were both getting to the basket and being aggressive. Now, that's good. Honestly, from like the center perspective, that's what you hope from your big man, is just apply some more rim pressure. But also from like Hugo, he still shot 9 threes. He went 1 of 9 from deep, but then he went and proceeded to get 6 of 9 from the line. I don't know how I feel about that weird like free throw rule they're trying in summer league. Not really vibing with it, but that is what it is. I do think it's good that it's weird. I don't know if
it
I would
saves
want
time, I guess. If it saves time for the summer league, I'm good with it.
Look, it's a slippery slope, man. Like, we're not doing the MLB thing where we're going to go ahead and we need to have a counting clock for everything because everyone wants to bleed the time out of the room. But I do like the fact that Hugo is going through and moving well, and moving the basketball around. Like, we talked about his passing, but the fact that, look, we talked about a bad shooting performance across the board for the whole team pretty much. We had a couple guys who shot well. John Tonja was one of them. But the fact of the matter is like Hugo wrapped up 8 assists, and that was with everybody having a really bad shooting performance. So I'm excited to see what he's going to be able to do in what is probably going to be an expanded role with the Celtics, just based on the fact of we reshuffled the deck. We added Paul George, we took away Jaylen Brown, all that usage. Those minutes, those reps are going to go around to who needs them the most, and also who's going to be able to provide for the most. So if Hugo can come in as a young guy and still be able to add value, even if his shot's not falling, he's going to get those opportunities, especially if he's able to create for others. And I mean, between the summer league that we've seen so far in the one game we're discussing, plus on top of some of the we've seen from him in Spain, like I think overall his playmaking has really, really improved. And it's something to be excited about because, again, it's really easy, especially with everything going on with the Celtics, with this trade and the aftermath of it, because, God knows ESPN was talking about it like every 2 minutes during the game. It was like, oh, the Jaylen Brown deal. Oh, the aftermath. It's really
that and
easy.
Kawhi, that and the Kawhi shenanigans.
That's
because the Raptors
that's a whole other. That's a messy situation in itself. But
yeah,
the fact is that what gets lost in all of that drama is the fact that there are young guys on this team that are still going to be able to contribute and now have more of an opportunity to do so. So I think it's an important wrinkle to acknowledge when it comes to Hugo and his development. Like, I'm excited about it.
That's it. From now on, whenever we say a wrinkle, we have to point to our crow's feet. It's the rule. So it's the new rule of the show. If we had beers, it'd be a drinking game. I do think that overall, you are on point. There's going to be young guys that are going to get minutes. Now, a lot of the dudes on this roster are not going to get minutes because they're not even under contract. But when you look over at the actual rotation right now, there's going to be positions up for grabs. And there's going to be rotation spots up for grabs. And that kind of leads me into Dillon Mitchell, because I think that you spoke about these young guys without speaking about Mitchell, and I feel like you set me up perfectly. So thank you for that. That was very nice of you. Whether you did it on purpose or not, we'll never know. We'll keep it that way.
A little bit.
That's intuition.
Podcasting so long, we just kind of figure it out, right? Mitchell, to be fair, I was very impressed with just his energy, his motor. I know that coming in, I wasn't really sold on him. Just, oh, well, great. We had another guy that can't shoot, blah, blah. I remember me and Mike going backwards and forth on the WhatsApp group. What I will say now is, looking back, I was probably a little bit too harsh. He's a second-round pick. I really like the fact that he leaked out as often as what he did. Like, he was getting up and down the floor, and people just weren't finding him with their passes. And that was frustrating. I can't imagine how pissed he was, because he probably could have ended the night with 10 points if people made their passes, their picture heads. Had a nice block, showed some bounce. The Celtics could, and I remember seeing Garza put this out there once the Celtics waived Banton, was they could theoretically pick Mitchell up on a minimum deal and not need him on a two-way and still be under the tax and round out the rotation that way and have 15 guys on the roster. Whether they do that way, they keep him on a two-way, it's kind of neither here nor there. But here's another young guy that could potentially find some minutes in this rotation from time to time. Consistently, not at all. Time to time, I think there's a world where he could get some burn. He's another guy like Cenac that's going to pressure the rim. He's going to explode. I just feel like the Celtics at the minute where they are, and a lot of goodwill kind of got burnt with the way the JB trade was handled. But where they are right now with the type of talent they have, the young talent that they have, the top end talent that's there as well, I feel like they're in a really good spot to build this identity, whatever it may be. And the fact that the Celtics were getting downhill, they were cutting more yesterday. Usually what you'll see is Summer League slowly starts to mimic some of the playbooks that you'll see in the regular season because it's a way of acclimating your rookies to the system before they get into training camp. It's just a little bit of an on-ramp for them. And if some of those screening actions that we saw where there was 3 or 4 guys cutting off those screens, I'm sure there was a wheel action at one point, or there was a variant of a wheel action. There was a bunch of cuts. I think Amari found Hugo on 2 or 3 cuts. Hugo found Amari on 1 or 2 cuts. There was Tanji got found on a cut here or there. That kind of tells me that hopefully there's going to be more fluidity in the roster, in the system, next season. And I feel like Mitchell could have a place there. I don't know if anyone else enjoyed watching him, but I thought he was energetic as a monster.
He's a dog, bro. I like I said, I watch a lot of Big East basketball down this way, and he is a dog. To me, at the worst case scenario, he's a taller, crazier version of Jaden Spring. That's not a bad thing to have. Somebody you can unleash on somebody. Go, hey, go make that guy's life a living hell for 5 minutes. He's at the very minimum elite at that. And I think he could be like, I don't know. He reminds me of Tony Allen in some regard, looking back at college. He's taller. I think Tony was like 6'4", 6'5", but like he's a legit 6'8" with a wingspan. He's like a legit 6'8". He's a tall player. And he's an explosive. He's the best athlete on the team. Like I'm telling you right now, like as far as jumping and running and speed.
I know, man. Cenac looked like he had him beat. I think Cenac can out jump him.
No, both of them are really athletic.
I'm definitely out jumping the both of them. I'm joking. I ain't got hops.
Hell no.
That's why I think I do not have his hop.
But he's definitely, like I say, he's worth having as a tool. I think it'd be nice to put him in main and hide him and figure out how to get a jump shot because he did shoot 7% from 3 last year.
Yeah, I think the athleticism there is there though, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the exciting part about it. The energy he brought was great. Like I do like that. He didn't get a ton of opportunities on the offensive side of things, but I like the fact that he was attacking the basket and he was getting up there too while he was doing it. Like the fact that the Celtics went out and they drafted 2 guys who are like extremely athletic is just a good indicator of what they're trying to do. The ability to just get out and run. And again, if he's a bad 3-point shooter, I think putting him on a 2-way, I think helps a little bit more than having him on a standard NBA contract, just because we have no idea like what the rotation is going to shake out to be. Even if it is good to have like a more athletic, sizable wing, like maybe those minutes are a little bit harder to come by because they are sliding a guy like Cenac down to the 4, or maybe Amari gets some like double big minutes at the 4, because those guys need to get their rotational minutes too. So like, how does that crunch there kind of have a domino effect on the rest of the roster, how they build it out from there? But I think if they want to help the kid, put him on a 2-way, get him in main, work on that jump shot. Cause if that's the one thing that he really, really needs to work on, it'll help the rest of his game kind of fall into place.
He's on a 2-way, but I'm not quite sure what that means. What song's that?
I heard it for a second, but then I lost it.
Ballin' for Suit Girls, all the bad guys one. Because I'm watching wrestling. Sorry. It just sounds like, dude, it sends me weird. I can't be all analytical when it's sunny. With that being said, though, the Celtics won. They're now 1-0 in the Summer League. In Summer League, they will play the Hornets on Sunday, which means I will watch it on Monday while everyone in America is asleep. And then we will be back at some point on Monday, probably mid-afternoon, because, we all have lives. and we will be covering that game too. With that though, is there anything else y'all want to touch before we go? I keep saying y'all because I've been watching Yellowstone.
No, I just the only thing is, great show. Dun Ranch might actually be just as. I'm really impressed with that. Having said that, I really like the kid from Milos Uzan, who is a teammate of Cenac Jr. He had 0 turnovers. He played 29 minutes. Played a lot of minutes, and he had 5 assists. And he's another guy. Kelvin Sampson said that with Fleming, who was the lottery pick, he had to sacrifice his game for the greater good of the team, and that he actually compared him not talent-wise to Peyton Pritchard, but talked about how it's important for a kid like him to get put in the right program. It said the Celtics were the perfect program for him to get not drafted by, but signed by and developed by. I'd love to see him get that last 2-way spot if it's possible. That's a guy I want to keep an eye out for. He's the only real floor general on the team right now that played.
Yeah, I mean, he's on an Exhibit 10 right now, so he's going to be with them all the way through training camp, and then they can make a decision. One good thing is, even if he doesn't land with the Celtics, I always like to think that if they don't land in Boston, but they end up getting picked up because the Celtics put them in a position to ball out and show out in Summer League, then it makes the franchise look a bit better as a whole. And you heard what Bill Chisholm said the other day. It's like, if there's any negative residue on our reputation following this JB stuff, we need to fix it. Getting a guy like Uzan onto an NBA contract with Boston with another team will be the start of that. I do think he looked good. He was quite quick. I liked his ability to change direction.
And he's 6'4".
He's my height. He's fast. Yeah, he's taller than me, actually. He's fast.
He's not little. He's not a little guy.
I just thought he was short, but he was playing against a bunch of tall guys. It's the NBA. Everyone's tall, man. Why am I acting surprised?
Height is relative.
Yeah, it really is. With that being said, everybody, make sure you show some love. The link to the newsletter is in the comment section. The subscribe button is right below us. The hype button is somewhere. I don't even know where that is. And make sure to like and share and do all that other good stuff. As usual, you've been listening to the Celtics Chronicle. I'm sorry I've been a bit wackier than usual. Make sure you go and show Tim and Mike some love, and we'll be back tomorrow or Monday. Deuces.
Cheers.